Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today Ben Simmons is back to playing at an all-star level. What are we talking about? Well, this is something that happened a few weeks ago, and I just had to talk about it. So basically, we had the annual, I think this has been going on for like 7 years now, where there's an off-season video of Ben Simmons in an empty gym, and he is just like splashing a bunch of three-pointers from all over the place. And it always comes with like a caption on your timeline, oh my God, Ben Simmons added a three-pointer. Watch out, NBA. He is about ready to take over. And now the last few years, the caption has become Ben Simmons revenge season incoming. And basically what happened was this video got posted, was getting spread around on Twitter, and this one person commented on it, or I believe they quote tweeted on it. Here, I'll show you it right now. Quote tweeted it and then said, shout out to Chris Brickley, but Ben Simmons is a lost cause. Chris Brickley is a Ben Simmons trainer. I believe he is just like a renowned, NBA skills coach is what his Twitter handle says. And Chris Brickley quote tweeted that and said this: thanks, bro, but Ben is healthy, moving very well. He's better now than his all-star seasons. I've never co-signed a player that didn't prove it when their season started. Trust me on this one. Okay, so I don't know much about Chris Brickley. I don't know other players that he's trained, but he's putting his name on Ben Simmons being an all-star level player once again in the NBA. Guys, who believes this? Who in the world other than Ben Simmons believes this? That he is back to being an all-star level? How many times do we have to see Ben Simmons shooting jumpers in an empty gym, shots that he's never going to take in an NBA game, splashing them? Do we have to watch to where everyone is in universal agreement? And I think we're pretty close to that right now, that Ben Simmons is, as that person quote tweeted that said, a lost cause. And I don't know what they gain out of this. Guys, if we look at Ben Simmons, the last 3 years, he's played in 57 games in 3 years. He has not scored more than 13 points in any game since 2022. And if you look at Ben Simmons throughout his entire career in the NBA, or at least maybe the last 4 or 5 years in the NBA, because I was going back and I was doing a bunch of research about this. And shout out to Ryan Russillo. He did a good monologue about this like a few weeks ago. And I was doing a lot more research, kind of looking at Ben Simmons and, kind of trying to find quotes from coaches about him and his role at the team and how he's doing. But if you just look at it over and over and over again with Ben Simmons, he doesn't take any accountability for things that have gone wrong in his career. It's always in Philadelphia. It's, oh my God, Brett Brown's an idiot. He's a bad coach. And then, oh my God, Joel Embiid, me and him don't fit together. And then, oh my God, Doc Rivers doesn't know how to utilize me properly. Then he goes to the Nets and it's all of a sudden I got some mental health stuff going on. I'm injured. My back hurts. And then Steve Nash doesn't know how to use me. And I don't fit well with KD and Kyrie. And then Jock Vaughn's an idiot and doesn't know how to utilize my skill set either. When it happens over and over and over and over and over again, where you're pointing the finger every single step of the way when things don't go right or things don't go well, maybe at some point you would like to think a normal, rational human being would look in the mirror and be like, hey, what do I have to do to get better? What do I have to do to fit with these other players on my team? What do I have to do to have a good working relationship with the head coach? What do I have to do to make sure that I am not a laughingstock and am not labeled as the worst contract in the NBA or one of the worst contracts in NBA history? Because he's going down as that right now with this current extension that he originally signed with the 76ers, and then he spent the last most of that extension with the Brooklyn Nets. It is considered one of the worst contracts in NBA history right now. Like I said, 57 games in 3 seasons. So I want to talk about that because this guy is never, ever accountable. Like, what does this do? What does this do? What is putting out this video, putting more of a spotlight on yourself? What does this do? Because, again, shout out to Ryan Russillo. I'll mention him one more time. He talked about the JJ Redick podcast that he did where Ben Simmons, and I listened to that whole interview when it happened, and it was like you were kind of looking to maybe get more of an insight in Ben and who he is and, maybe some things that he's been struggling with because, he did when he originally sat out with the Sixers, he said, hey, I have mental health issues. But then if you look at how the Sixers handled that situation with Ben, they stopped paying him, and basically the reports where Ben was showing up to training camp and stuff like that, and he was just half-assing all of the drills. And then Doc Rivers said, like, hey, if you're going to half-ass, you might as well just leave. And that's basically what happened. So the Sixers were kind of like, they couldn't publicly say it, but they were like, hey, if you really do have mental health struggles, we're sympathetic to that. I think most people in the world right now are, at least in the last, decade or so, are more sympathetic to people that have mental health struggles in their life, because, everyone I think knows someone that has had, mental illness, whatever that might be. And the Sixers are like, hey, we have all of these resources here. We got sports psychologists. We have regular psychologists. We will help you do whatever it takes to get you back on the basketball court. And Ben Simmons is like, nah, man, I'm just going to go hang out and like party and like play Call of Duty all the time. That's basically what he said. I'm not going to say that he was faking it, but if he did, that is incredibly a terrible thing to do, because the next time somebody does actually have an actual mental health issue, and they need to actually take time away from playing a sport to deal with that, there's going to be a certain group of people that are always going to be like faking it. So that's very insensitive to people that actually do have mental health struggles if he was indeed faking it. Again, I'm not going to say that he was, but based on the Sixers' actions, it looked like they didn't think it was real. Okay. But I want to talk about this a little bit here too, because you might be thinking with Ben Simmons, with this situation that we are currently seeing right now, hey, maybe Ben Simmons didn't add a 3-point shot. I think we can all agree that he isn't going to be taking much 3-pointers, much jump shots, much shots more than 2.5 feet away from the rim. Ben Simmons ain't going to be taking those this season for the time that he actually does play. But there might be some of you out there that might be saying, hey, look at what Chris Brickley said. Ben Simmons, maybe some of these other years, yeah, maybe he was holding out for kind of curious reasons that we might not know the whole story about, but there was actually physical ailments that Ben Simmons was dealing the last few years. And now if Ben Simmons is 100% healthy, maybe we see him actually come back and become a very productive NBA player. Again, I'll shout out Russillo again, because I completely forgot about this. If you go back to 2022, this is the year that Ben Simmons held out. Then he was traded to the Nets halfway through the season at the trade deadline. If you go back to that season, there was talks about that there where it's like, okay, he got traded to the Nets. It was like, all right, the holdout's over, right? You just didn't want to play in Philly. Well, then it was like, oh my God, he's got a back issue. Okay, he's got this back issue. But then as the Nets were getting ready for the playoffs, basically what happened was we started hearing a bunch of rumblings throughout the Nets camp that was like, hey, Ben Simmons, he's looking great. He's back in shape. He's fully healthy. This dude, watch out. This dude's going to come in, play for the Nets in the playoffs, and be an absolute weapon. These are things that Steve Nash was saying. A lot of the players on the Nets are saying, like, hey, Ben looks really, really good. He looks like he can play right now. And then Ben Simmons did not play a single game for the Brooklyn Nets that year. Did not play a single game, didn't play a playoff game, didn't play anything. Just showed up on the sideline wearing goofy ass outfits. So this isn't the first time we've seen people close to Ben Simmons being like, oh yeah, he's back to being an all-star level. He's back to being an all-star level, bro. He's back, man. Look at him putting in the work in the gym. Dude, Ben Simmons is not a serious basketball player. He's getting paid $30 million a year or whatever. He's not even playing good enough to be a $3 million a year player. He is not a serious basketball player. And I want to go back to Ben Simmons before the draft, before he got drafted all the way back in 2016, because there was a concern with Ben Simmons with his time at LSU. It was like, hey, does this guy care? What is the deal with this guy's motor? Because we can tell that the physical talent's there. It doesn't look like he cares that much, but he's still putting up these amazing numbers. But if this guy actually gets his head on straight and puts 100% effort into being the best basketball player that he can, this guy can be very, 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 very special. But from what we've seen him at LSU, we are a little bit uncertain about that. Then he ends up getting drafted, sits out his first year to a foot injury. That the Sixers made sure that he sat out that entire year. Comes back, wins Rookie of the Year, is an all NBA level player, is an all-star level player. And basically all of those concerns just kind of got shoved aside. And we're like, oh, maybe it was just the fact that, LSU is weird. He didn't want to play in college, yada, 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 yada. But looking back on that now, maybe that was the real Ben Simmons. And maybe this Ben Simmons we've seen since he's gotten to Brooklyn is the real Ben Simmons. There was also reports, too, that I was going back and reading that they were like, hey, Ben, do you want to rehab at the facility in Brooklyn, where we can kind of monitor everything and we can help you out? And he was like, nah, man, I'm going to go to Miami, and that's where I'm going to do all my rehab and training. And I believe that was last year around this time. Okay, I'm not going to add anything to that. I think you guys know what that means. Guys, he's an unserious basketball player. He might think that he's awesome and, he made a bunch of money and, he's never going to have to worry about money for the rest of his life. And, he did have his accomplishments in the NBA, but I think outside of injuries, for people that had their careers derailed because of injuries, he's probably one of the biggest disappointments that we've had. Guys, there's a time, I remember the time when he was, again, it was like he's year 1 or year 2 in his career. There was a conversation, there's an actual legitimate conversation people were having. Would you rather build your team around Ben Simmons or Giannis? That was the trajectory this guy was on at one point. Would you rather build around Ben Simmons or Giannis? And Giannis did everything in his power. Now, again, you can call out flaws in Giannis's game, things like that. Sometimes he hasn't been the most healthy in the postseason, especially the last few years. But there's one thing I know about Giannis. Giannis has tried everything possible to work on his jump shot, to work on his body, to make sure that he's in 100% the best shape to become the best basketball player that he can possibly be. And I can't say that about Ben Simmons. I think outside of injuries, he's one of the bigger disappointment. I don't know if I want to call him a bust because he did make all NBAs, did make all-star teams, but guys that did have a lot of potential and didn't fulfill it, he's starting to go up there on that list. Because if this guy really did have his head on straight, really did care about becoming a better basketball player, this guy could have been very, very special in the NBA for a long time. And it seems like he didn't want to do that for whatever reasons. So I think maybe those first few years in Philly where it was like, oh, we don't have to worry about his motor, we don't have to worry about all that stuff. I actually think that was the outlier. And I think this Ben Simmons we had the last few years, the Ben Simmons we saw at LSU, I think that was the real Ben Simmons. So there you have it, guys. I've been talking too long here about this. Let me know what you guys think. Ben Simmons, is this guy, am I crazy? Is this guy actually going to come back and be an actual, contributing basketball player right now? Is there also a theory too? I saw this theory getting thrown out with that stuff where it was like, hey, is Ben Simmons actually the kind of guy where it's like, oh my God, it's a contract year. And now I'm actually going to try and I'm going to be good. And then maybe I can bamboozle another team, trick another team to paying me $200 million or something this offseason or $100 million this offseason. And then I'll just go back to not caring again. One of those guys. I don't know if that's the case, but let me know what you guys think about Ben Simmons, his career, and how he's going to do this year. I'm curious about your thoughts. So thank you very much for watching this episode. If you like this episode, hit that like button and hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. Those are the best things that you can do to help support the show, and it costs you absolutely $0. We do a lot of kind of monologue topics about college football, NFL football. Now that basketball is starting to gear up, we're going to be doing a lot more conversations talking about the NBA and even college basketball a little bit here too. So if you like that stuff, make sure you check out the rest of our channel and hit subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.